Live from the chicken wing capital of the world, Buffalo, New York. You're listening to the Childcare Bridge podcast, your source for the best tips, tools, and tactics on how to market and grow your childcare center, ensuring total domination. Total domination. This is the Childcare Bridge, and this is your host, Michael Tasner.
Unreasonable hospitality. That's not often something that you hear about when it comes to this particular industry. Now, there's a lot of things that centers do really, really well, and there are a lot of centers that go above and beyond. But in today's episode, I wanted to talk through a couple of thoughts from the book Unreasonable Hospitality and some of the things that I've learned over the last couple of weeks in finishing up my certification. And it's interesting because I had thought that unreasonable hospitality was more for the hospitality industry. So thinking like Four Seasons and Ritz-Carlton and different things like that. But as I reread the book for probably the fifth time over the last, year or two, things started to click. And what I realized is that not only is this perfect for this industry, but most centers are doing none of this. Now, what do you think that does for you if you take one bit or one piece of this and start to implement it? It puts you in a league unlike everyone else. So I'm going to rapid fire some things at you. And the beautiful thing is that many things I'm going to throw at you do not cost much, if any, money. A lot of times when people hear unreasonable hospitality, they think like over the top and like I'm going to have to be just really pulling out the red carpet and caviar and all that kind of stuff. And yes, in a certain circumstance, that might be true. But there's a lot of ways that you can elevate the experience. Elevate it to the next level, and continue to improve it for both the families as well as the kids that are attending your center. So let's start. One of my favorite ones is actually all about details. Looking at every piece of the process and improving. Now, the improvement could be reducing friction, which I've talked a bit about in the past, but it could also be looking at every experience and saying, does this feel premium? Does it feel well put together? So if we just look at the onboarding process, so let's focus and say, for now, they've decided to enroll, okay? So they've taken the tour. We're not going to focus on tours and lead generation and all that stuff today. They're a new family. What does that process look like at your center? For most centers, you're sending 50 pages of paperwork. Either they're having to fill it out literally on paper and bring it back. Sometimes you've got electronic forms. You're probably having to pay a deposit. Does that feel premium? Is that frictionless? So if you just take a small snapshot and say, what could we do to improve the onboarding process? Well, what if they came in and filled out the paperwork in person? What if they came in and you had some computers and an iPad where everything is already preloaded for them so that it's easy? What if they were doing that and there was maybe a meal or some drinks and there's like a special room? So Michael, where are we going to find that space? Well, you can find space. You have a center. Even if you're transforming your office ever so slightly, it's the little details that I'm going to want you to start to think about and start to obsess over. How can you, again, reduce friction, make the process better, but even more so, how can you make it premium or at least feel premium? The first day of school, arguably for that family, is one of the most stressful, especially if a parent has never had their son or daughter in care before. How can you completely elevate that? Now, this idea will be a little bit over the top, but what if there was a limousine that picked up the family for their first day? Or there was a car service. It doesn't have to be a limousine. Maybe it's in the Uber Black, for example. What if there legitimately is a red carpet that you put down? How much does that cost? $50 for a car? It's those little things that end up becoming Instagram worthy. They spread on social media, but it creates those micro moments, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. Yeah, sending a limousine might not be overly practical, but helping them arrange for that pickup and drop off maybe the first day is something interesting. That red carpet idea. It's those little things that also no one else is doing. I've never seen or heard about, and I've been in this industry for 15 plus years, thousands of centers, thousands. I've never heard about a center putting out a red carpet for somebody's first day, ever. Well, Michael, that's not done. That's the whole point. If everyone is doing things the same way, if everyone has 50 pages of enrollment paperwork and it's just a sloppy process and it's not fun and you're having to call the doctors and all that, well, what if there was a way that you could help with that? Now, you can't typically call doctors on the parents' behalf, but what if you did fill out some of the form for them, already having it preloaded? Just thinking about all those little things. So the first aspect of unreasonable hospitality, and again, and these are in no particular order, the first aspect for today is obsessing over those little details. Every part of the process. How are parents paying? Is there friction there? Every little detail. After their first day, are you sending a nice handwritten note? Are you calling them, sending them a video? If every center is, well, they're making a call and they're saying, well, little Johnny did this. Okay, great. Well, what else can you do to go above and beyond? The second one is all about kind of celebrating milestones. And you're able to kind of make things not necessarily into a spectacle, but you're celebrating the first week, the first day, the first month, celebrating birthdays. What if you were capturing details of the parents' anniversaries and you already had prearranged for the parents to have care so they don't have to worry about the kid or kids? Maybe you even go above and beyond and you've taken care of a dinner reservation. Now, again, that I know isn't inexpensive, but what if you gave them a voucher a week before and said, we know your anniversary is next week. We'd like to take care of the babysitting and care aspects so you can have a nice evening out. The child's teacher, they're going to come to your house. Like, when does a center do that? Now, I know that you might say, well, we've had parent nights out and things like that. Well, when have you asked for their anniversary a week or two in advance, offered to basically have a teacher or an assistant like go to their house and help at no cost? You're obviously having to pay the teacher. Do you think that's going to create a ridiculous amount of not even longevity, but just the social aspect, the goodwill? Like, no one is doing that. Celebrating the child's birthday is always a huge thing. How can you go above and beyond there? Maybe it's getting a Build-A-Bear, for example, and it's like a custom Build-A-Bear for that child. How can you do things that you haven't been doing before? That again, I'm not asking you to go spend tens of thousands of dollars. But what's the cost of one enrollment walking out the door? $1,000 a month? $1,500 a month? Now you're having to replace that enrollment, if you ever replace it. Don't you think it's a good use of maybe a few $100s during the course of the year to invest in this type of stuff? The other one that I want to talk about today is so easy in this industry, and they're are a lot of things that you're already doing. They're all like, this is the one that it's the easiest, but I want you to, again, take it to another level. And that is creating these micro moments with the family. So think about the things that you've been doing, probably Mother's Day, Father's Day, graduation. Some centers might do an art show. And I love all that. And I do not want you to stop any of that. Pageants at Christmas. How else can you create micro moments? One of my favorite things that a center is doing is they have a breakfast bar every single day. And it's not a continental grab a high carbohydrate bagel. It's a legitimate breakfast bar. Something hot and different daily. That micro moment of you spending 15, 20 minutes having breakfast with your son or daughter, sitting in there, making those memories, it's priceless. Now, there's a cost to this, obviously, but I can tell you that that completely differentiates them, and it also just has those micro moments to a whole nother level because now they're happening every day. What micro moments could you continue to do to have that family feel special, the student feel special? And it's not just the holidays. I want more and more information about the family so that I can then help celebrate those things. Parent birthdays, sibling birthdays, anniversary. Obviously, the first day that they came, you can make that into a special day, as we talked about. But what else could you do from an experiential standpoint? Now, a perfect example, outside of the things we talked about, is summer camp and being able to completely elevate what you do by way of summer camp. Extra special micro moments. So you might have the go-to things, the zoo or a petting zoo coming to your location, the science museum, things like that. What else could you do to take it to another level? This concept of unreasonable hospitality, and I just shared a few things with you today. This is one that literally can completely separate you from the pack. Not only do you have to worry about getting new families in the door, but you've got to keep them. And what will end up happening is as you're elevating things, if there's a little oops in this industry, and I see the little oops or big oops every single day, there's an issue with the teacher, something happens, you're out of ratio, whatever it is, they're going to be a lot more forgiving because you've created that level of unreasonable hospitality. I'm going to continue this next week with more tips on how to make your center unforgettable. It's Michael Tasner signing off. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'll see you next week.